Hello and welcome to sim.bc, where it is 10:54. So just the beginning of the day for me when it comes to studying, because today is yet another day of actually going through and studying for me exams. So yesterday we went through HR and team management, and I talked a bit about SMART, goal setting theory. And today I'm going to go through lots of negotiations. Yeah, but that's going to be all fine. That's going to be all good. Not what we're going to talk about. We're going to continue with the equity theory that I talked about, or kind of touched upon yesterday. Did I? Did I not? I kind of teased it, I think. So yeah, that's what we're going to continue with as well today. And if we can get into it, we're also going to discuss some organizational justice. There are 4 types of justices that we might go through. Otherwise, we'll postpone that and have that yet again after this video. I'm just getting into so much stuff I want to talk about when I actually study, which is amazing. Also going to point out that I found out the reason why I filled up my computer with I don't know, or I filled up the storage of space on my computer and I didn't know why. It turns out that when I take away the clips from iMovie, I just apparently hide them. I don't actually throw them away. So what I've had in my computer is all the clips I've done for all the 102 videos up until like 2 days ago worth of storage on my computer. So I had like 70 gigabytes of videos on my computer, and I was like, why can't they get this away? But then I've googled it before, but I didn't find an answer. Then I watched YouTube videos like 2 hours, and they were like, you can actually change this little marker here and categorize it so you can see the hidden objects. And I was like, oh, no way! And then I moved in the trash, and now I have full storage capacity yet again. I will also like to point out that I was watching a video right now about the review on my PowerPoint negotiation and culture, which I studied on a bit yesterday actually in the evening. And it's quite weird to see myself on YouTube on another computer, because I'm sitting at the school computer right now. And it's kind of weird, to be honest, to see to go into YouTube, right? Search for sim.bc and find me, myself. Just gonna show you I'm yet again in class today, and here I am sitting and watching myself. But yeah, so that's the surroundings we have to work on. But yeah, I'm sitting just to review the review. Oh yeah, that's the thing. Just to look through, see what I can improve and stuff like that. But without any further ado, mates, let's get into it. So today we're going to discuss, just going to move me around here so I can actually see what I'm doing and having the time, because that's also important. Yeah, today we're going to go through equity theory. So what is equity theory? Its motivation is influenced by a process of social comparison. Individuals tend to evaluate the level of input, the effort they put in, and the output, the salary or goals or objectives that they get out of it, of their contribution at work, and they also make the same process with another colleague, the referent in the workplace. So you tend to refer to someone else when you see like, how much input have I put into this project, how much output did I get, and then to see if you got a good or a bad score, so to say, good or a bad deal, you tend to evaluate yourself towards someone else. So if you have like Jerry here, you look at Jerry and you see that he put in a lot less effort than you did, but he got the same outcome. Then you might have gotten demotivated. In the same way, if he put in way more effort than you did, then you can get demotivated as well if you got the same outcome. Or, which tends to happen, you just think, well, I'm better than him, of course that is why I got a higher outcome. Yeah, so we're gonna go into them. The ratio comparisons then is the perception of inequity due to being under rewarded. So that means that you put in more effort, right? But you still get the same outcome as someone else. So the outcome input ratio is lower for you in comparison to Jerry, for instance. And yeah, Jerry is no one. It's just it's just an example, right? You with me? You with me? And then we have equity. That's when the outcome to input the output to input ratio is exactly the same for both me and Jerry. And then we have the output to input ratio where mine is higher, so the inequity due to being over rewarded. But yet again, people tend, when you're over rewarded, think that, well, it's no clue that I'm over rewarded. I know why. It's probably because I'm a bit better, than Jerry at what he does. It can be for seniority or other effects. So moving in then to equity theory or organizational justice from Adams then in 1965. Based on equity theory, employees who perceive yeah, inequity. I would say inequality, but inequity, sure, it works. Whatever, whatever. Just reading off the PowerPoints to get the terminology, you know. Inequity will make the following choices. So if you have a lower output to input ratio than Jerry has, you might change inputs, putting less effort at work. You might change the outputs, ask for an increase of the outcomes. You're actually asking your boss, right, for, can I get more outcomes, like higher salary or something, because I put in the more effort, right? You can change the perception of yourself or others. He or she more experienced than I am, so we can say that Jerry is more experienced than I am. That is why he can work less but still get the same outcome as I do, because what he does might actually be equally to me even though he puts in less effort. Could be the case. And choose of a different referent, and that is, I would say that this is the worst one, because if you look at Jerry and you're unsatisfied, you look towards George, you might still be unsatisfied, and then you watch towards, I don't know, I can't even come up with a name on the spot, Kalle. And Kalle, he is putting in more inputs and getting lower outputs than you do, and then you're all of a sudden really, really satisfied. I would say that's the wrong way of seeing it. You should challenge yourself by seeing, oh, if he puts in less effort, does it mean that is he still getting the same job done as I am? So challenge yourself to see if they put in less effort, what is it that actually is the difference between you two, between me and Jerry, between me and George, and not looking towards Kalle and see that, oh, he's putting in more effort than I do, but maybe you're actually making the same amount of work, but it costs you less effort, or a different amount of effort, let's say. And the last one is of course, leave the field or quit the job. Quite recently, but yeah, I would say that's a bit of a bad thing. I know that there are some inequalities that will never change, even though you have the same effort and you have the same amount of work put in, and it accumulates to the same amount of work, but the outcome is still different. And then you're just like, if you're like in the shorter end of the stick, you might just leave. And it's not much to do about it. If you've talked with your manager and nothing happens. So what if you realize you're treated better than others? Well, if you're perceived to receive more than you deserve, you could try to invest more in your job. It's like somebody's gonna do that. No, but yeah, that's actually something you can do. Because this is going to motivate you as well, right? You see that your effort is getting rewarded way better than other people's efforts. Then you might say, well, if I'm putting in this little effort and they're putting in a lot, but we're still getting the same outcome, if I put in even more, if I put in equally as much as they do, I will get a higher outcome than they do. So I will get even more salary maybe. So that's a motivation to put in, more effort. I would say it's misplaced. That's misplaced motivation, in my opinion, because that shouldn't be the case to begin with, but yeah, whatever. It's one of the things that we are discussing in this course. Change the reference compared to another person. Yet again, pick someone to challenge you. I would always say, pick someone who's putting in lower effort but getting a higher outcome. What's the difference between you two? Try to find that reference. I know that some people will find that unmotivating, but if you're me, I would say, well, that's kind of motivating actually, because now I want to be like that person. I want to see what's the difference between us, right? I want to do the same thing. I want to get treated in the same way, because then I can put in equally as much effort as I did in the beginning and get an even higher outcome that they did. So trying to shift the low ratio to get a high ratio in comparison to someone else. And yet again, the output to input ratio I'm talking about. Change the perception of the situation. If I earn more, I deserve it since my contribution is greater than the others. Well, yes, again, that could be a way of thinking about it. You could perhaps be the manager. And if you're the manager, you might have from your own perspective, right? You might have the perception that you're putting in way less effort than everybody else is doing that is your employee beneath you. Even though you should be a part of a team as a manager, you should be a part of the whole time, and you shouldn't see yourself as over them, dependent on the situation and the corporate culture and corporate context, of course. But according to me, you should be a part of your team if you're a manager. But yeah, you might see that, oh, in comparison to everybody else, I put in quite a low amount of effort. That could be the perception of effort that you're putting in that situation. Whereas the employees might think, oh, this manager is really carrying the team, whilst you think, I couldn't do anything without these employees. You know what I mean? So it's all about the perception of input and outcomes as well, because it might not only be, the outcome might not only be the salary, it could be other things as well. You can get benefits at the job, at work, you can get, I don't know, favorable treatment when it comes to dealing of projects. It could be all sorts of things, and these might be a bit more abstract than your salary. So it's also the perception of what the outcome is worth, and the perception of how much input you're putting in. I know I've talked a lot about perception and your own opinion when I talked about culture a couple of days ago, but yeah, that is carrying over because that's basically I would say the base of human behavior, right? You with me? So researchers say that this is not much of a problem as people could easily justify an overpayment, whereas the most difficult is to accept an underpayment. Whereas I would argue that you should view yourself as the underpaid employee, because then that might get you to actually, how should I say this, improve yourself to actually get on top of the other people or on par with the other people. Yeah, that's a matter of mindset, I would say. And then we're getting into organizational justice, but I'm seeing that we're at the 10-minute mark, 10 and a half, something like that. So I'm going to discuss a personal experience instead. It was once I worked as a bartender. Once, it was quite a long time, but I remember this one vividly. I worked as a bartender and I put in so much effort, mate. I was like, over the entire bar, we were 2 people in the bar, 2 bartenders, not gonna name and shame even if I wanted to. But yeah, we ran around, I ran around, I did everything. I really tried and I was new at the job, right? And then there was this guy who was he was senior, he had seniority in comparison to me, right? He had been there for a couple of years, and he was just like, dude, you don't have to run around and do everything. Because if you do, or rather, he had some crazy argument, but the basis of it was that he was just like walking around, taking it kind of chill, taking it kind of slow, whilst I was running around because I liked the job. So I was perceiving myself to put in way more effort, but in the end of the day, he got a higher salary than I did. That was because he had seniority at the company, which I thought was unfair, right? Was that demotivating for me? No, yes, I shouldn't lie. Yes, it was, because I was thinking like, oh, this guy, and I was complaining with the other people at the company, and I was like, oh, how can this be the case? And they were also like, yeah, this is crazy. How can this be the case? But then we talked about it with the manager at the place, and it all turned out that he had been there for a longer amount of time than we had, and he had some, some key experience, right? He knew how to, I don't know, I don't remember quite what it was really, it was a while ago now, but he knew how to change a specific sort of liquor in a specific sort of machine or something like that, or he had some other key, he was like a key employee, right? They couldn't just get rid of him. So that was why he could put in lower effort, but still getting the same outcome, or a higher outcome actually than the others of us. Plus that we were 2 in a bar, so since we were viewed as a team, we were viewed as we accumulated, or rather we put in a accumulated amount of effort. So both, like, even if I put in 75% of the effort and he put in 25, in the eyes of the manager, we both put in 100% of the accumulated effort, no matter how it was distributed. And that was, in my opinion, what do you do? We live in an unfair world, don't we? But I was looking at him and I was thinking, how can I make myself look like a key employee? Not look like a key employee, but how can I find a niche at this workplace that makes me as invulnerable, as valuable and as irreplaceable as this guy is. So I was just trying to be the more, the positive guy, the one that everybody looked towards when they wanted to laugh or something. And that actually turned out quite great because that was good networking as well. So I learned something there. So yet again, I would say, even though I got a bit demotivated in the beginning, I learned why it was the case that we had different ratios, and then I improved my overall quality of life at the company by trying to find my own key, finding my own key competence that would gain me the same benefits as he did. So even though people are even though people are perceiving different outcomes and different inputs and efforts, I would say try to put yourself into relation with the other person who is having a better ratio than you do, because in that way you will learn more, and that will gain you in the long run, I would say, and it will give you more experience. So that was everything for me today. I assume that most people, or many people, will not agree with this, since I am not agreeing with the consensus of the researchers. But yeah, that was everything for me, my personal experience and my personal opinion about the subjects. Have a nice one, mates, and I'll see you tomorrow with probably distributive justice or expectancy theory. Having a bit of a hard time choosing between them, and now it's leaning more towards justice. So have a nice one, mates, and I'll see you tomorrow.